Chapter 471. Set up the bus? Break the turtle shell. At the moment Giroud headed the ball, all the Arsenal fans stood up from the stands, and their cheers completely covered Wembley Stadium. But just when everyone thought Giroud could give the team the lead, the ball flew over the crossbar and out of play. What kind of shooting skill is this? Even with an open goal, he couldn't score. Seeing Giroud miss the opportunity, Son silently complained on the field. Just moments ago, Arsenal had been pulling the strings on the right side of the penalty area, and both of Manchester City's center-backs lost their positions. Yet Big Giroud still couldn't seize the chance. His shooting ability is the biggest obstacle to Giroud becoming a top-tier striker. As a tall striker, Giroud's ability to support the play definitely places him among the top strikers. However, his biggest flaw is his average ability to capitalize on opportunities. As a near top-tier striker, he has only surpassed 20 league goals in 2 seasons throughout his career. Even during the seasons, he became Arsenal's undisputed main player. His goal-scoring efficiency did not reach 1 goal every 2 games. But he does have strengths. In many seasons, he has delivered over 10 assists, making him a standard double-double type of striker. Every time Arsenal attacked, Giroud resembled a basketball center, pressing company behind him. Chapter 472. The opponent is completely panic. No pressure for the first title. In the broadcast studio, Jean-June, Son has scored again, despite not scoring in the first half. Arsenal's captain maintained a calm demeanor as the second half began. It felt like once he exerted himself, the opponent couldn't hold on. This goal is bound to be quite a blow for the Manchester City players. Jean-Lu. That's right, conceding a goal at this point will inevitably dampen their spirits. They work hard to defend for an hour, only to see the opponent score seemingly effortlessly, which is definitely disheartening. Fernandinho's decision to press earlier was a poor choice. He was only thinking about intercepting and forgot that Son could also dribble past him, which is called habitual thinking. As a result, Manchester City had no choice but to go all out against Arsenal. After all, losing 1 is the same as losing 10. It's better to take a risk than sit back and wait. Sure enough, at the moment Son scored, Pellegrini immediately made a substitution adjustment. A few minutes later, Yaya Touré and Aguero, who had completed their warm-up, stood on the sidelines. Manchester City substituted Yaya Touré for Fernandinho and Aguero for Milner. Chapter 473. Guardiola wants to go head-to-head with the professor? That's great. Arsenal has won their first title of the season, and the media's reaction was quite calm. Everyone felt that Manchester City could cause some trouble for Arsenal, but there weren't too many expectations for them. Over the years, everyone has seen what goal-backed football can achieve. Since the Etihad consortium took over, they have spent lavishly for nearly 7 years, stirring up the transfer market every season and bringing in countless football stars. Although this club does not have top-tier superstars, the first team has accumulated far more top players than a normal club, even surpassing traditional Premier League giants. However, after nearly 7 seasons, Manchester City has only won 1 FA Cup, with the output far from proportional to the investment. In these seasons, Manchester City has often shown unstoppable form in the first half of the league, only to collapse in the second half. And they even lost to relegated Wigan Athletic in the FA Cup final. Past records indicate that this is a team that struggles in tough matches. In the Champions League, Manchester City has been eliminated in the group of death for 2 consecutive seasons, further highlighting their image of being afraid of strong opponents. This season, Manchester City has played a few good matches, first handing Bayern their first defeat of the season in the final round of the Champions League group stage, personally sending them to the defending champions Arsenal. Chapter 474. Could have dominated, but ended up giving them a breather. March 12th, the Emirates Stadium, which can hold 60,000 people, is packed to capacity. On the sidelines, both head coaches and substitute players have taken their seats. Arsenal fans are holding up large banners in the main stand, while over 2,000 Bayern fans, though outnumbered, still raise scarves with the Bayern logo and sing loudly. Unlike the joyful home fans, the distant Bayern supporters were expressions of resilience and defiance. They have traveled a long way just to support their team in a fierce battle. At this moment, the Champions League entrance music begins to play, and both teams walk onto the pitch behind the referee. The leading players from both teams are Son and Lam. Son walks at the front for Arsenal, and although he has a faint smile on his face, his presence on the big screen still exudes significant pressure. Lam appears 2 meters away from Son, holding his head high, but he still cannot reach Son's chin. As the two walk together, their upper bodies are fully visible, while Lahm seems to be stuck in the frame, lacking both momentum and appearance. Chapter 475. Want to turn it around. Sweep Bayern away. After the goal, Bayern's players regained their energy. After restarting the game, they began to run wildly, firmly executing their tactics. What went wrong? They probably don't realize a cold hard fact. Bayern needs to score 2 more goals to advance. As the first half is nearing its end, they can go back to the dressing room for some water, wash their faces, and eat a banana to shake off the bad luck. To be honest, if they had seized their chances earlier, Bayern could have followed the script of last season's Barcelona. However, with 3 or 4 excellent opportunities, just missing by a hair's breadth is quite frustrating. In the blink of an eye, the first half reached the 42nd minute, and both sides played very cautiously. Whenever the opponent gained momentum, they would be quickly taken down. Every ball for Arsenal had to go through Son Koo, while Bayern's attacks were led by Robin. Both teams were completing the last part of the first half in the most stable way possible, and Bayern's players, having just scored, lacked the confidence to push forward and challenge Arsenal players. Meanwhile, Arsenal players felt a slight unease after failing to score consecutively, leading to an unfortunate deflection goal by the opponent. Everything was focused on safety. Football is inherently a sport with some superstitious elements. Many head coaches earn hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, yet still wear socks from 10 years ago on match days. Chapter 476. Guardiola. Son Koo is a problem we can't handle in the broadcast studio. Jean June. As the game enters the 70th minute, Son Koo's goal has allowed Arsenal to take the lead, expanding their aggregate score to 5-2. With only 20 minutes left, Bayern trails by 3 goals, and their chances of advancing are purely theoretical. Thanks to Son Koo's outstanding performance, Arsenal has nearly secured a spot in the quarterfinals. Zhangji. Arsenal has taken the lead. Bayern has turned the tables, and Arsenal has once again expanded their lead. The match's dynamics have shifted twice. How do you view the performances of both sides in this match? Jean Lu. If I had to summarize it in one sentence, I would say that once Son Koo made his move, the match was over. This may sound shocking, but if you think about it carefully, isn't that the case? Last season, Arsenal managed to reach the Champions League final and win the championship by defeating Bayern, largely thanks to Son Koo's performance at critical moments. Aside from Son Koo as a strong point, Arsenal's other players did not have a decisive advantage over the top European teams. In the last 2 months of the season, Son Koo devoted almost all his energy to the Champions League, giving his all in every match. Chapter 477. UEFA draws Atletico Madrid. Does UEFA hate Arsenal? The German football community was very disappointed with Bayern's loss to Arsenal. Although having a monopoly team in a league is quite unfortunate for other teams in the same league. Bayern has not lost in the Bundesliga this season, and other teams are just fighting for second place, with no hopes for the championship. Bayern is the most dominant team in Bundesliga history and even in the history of world football. A team being able to dominate a league for 11 years is simply unimaginable in modern football history. The English media mock the German teams for always being unable to win the championship, which forces them to focus on profitability as their primary goal. They also ridicule German clubs for trying to increase commercial revenue, likening them to idol groups that hold 2 or 3 autograph sessions and handshake events every month, turning the relationship between fans and teams into that of a fan circle. With such a club in existence, one could say it is unfortunate for other Bundesliga clubs. Interestingly, when the dominant team in the Bundesliga was brutally eliminated in the Champions League after 2 legs, the German football community felt generally repressed. Chapter 478. Eddie Howe is acting strange. The draw for the Champions League quarterfinals has ended, and Son Koo started to analyze UEFA's intentions. From the groupings of the quarterfinals, it is clear that UEFA has put in a lot of thought. The pairing of teams is also quite deliberate. Arsenal facing Atletico Madrid actually has considerable significance. Drawing Atletico Madrid seems like a good draw for Arsenal, as they at least avoided Manchester United and Real Madrid. In terms of strength, Atletico Madrid can be considered at its peak in the last 20 years. This team has many brave and capable players, and even in the Premier League this season, Atletico would not be underestimated. No team would feel confident facing them. From the type of teams, it seems UEFA has carefully considered giving Atletico to Arsenal. Arsenal's performance over the past 2 seasons has fully demonstrated that they have become a leader in possession-based play. After Guardiola's departure, Barcelona has become increasingly sluggish, no longer resembling the once great team. In last season's Champions League quarterfinals, Arsenal used a combination of possession and long balls to completely dismantle Barcelona. Bayern, with its formidable players and Guardiola's influence, ended up being defeated by Arsenal in a sudden death scenario in the second leg. Chapter 479. The Art of the Young Owner's Speech. After pondering for a moment, Eddie Howe said with a serious expression, 4 days later, we will play Hull City away. Although they are in the Premier League, we are not much weaker than them, so I plan to give my all and reach the semi-finals. Fool. Hearing Eddie Howe's words, Sonke still wore a smile, but had already internally criticized him several times. Sonke did not interrupt him, but listened with a smile until Eddie Howe finished his thoughts and nodded. Eddie Howe is from Bournemouth's youth training. Most of his career as a player and coach has been spent at Bournemouth. After taking Bournemouth up to League One, he spent 2 seasons at Burnley in the Championship, achieving decent results, but for some unknown reason, he returned to Bournemouth. Given Eddie Howe's cautious attitude during his time at Leyton Orient, it seems his 2 seasons at Burnley were not very comfortable. Therefore, after arriving at Leyton Orient, Eddie Howe has been very careful, striving to please both the owner and the fans. It is easy to imagine that with this mindset, he hopes to achieve satisfactory rankings in all competitions. This season, Leyton Orient ranks 3rd in the Championship, reached the round of 16 in the League Cup and the quarterfinals in the FA Cup, all of which have set new historical records for the club. Chapter 480. Simeone wants to confront Arsenal head-on after a relatively quiet March. April quietly arrived. This month is crucial for all European powerhouses. The quarterfinals and semi-finals of the Champions League will take place this month, with a total of 4 matches. Additionally, there is an FA Cup semi-final, and this season's FA Cup Final Four consists of Arsenal, Manchester United, Hull City, and Wigan Athletic. Wigan Athletic defeated Manchester City 2-1 away in the quarterfinals, becoming their nemesis. After watching the match between Wigan and Manchester City, Sonke could only sigh that the overall level of championship teams is truly not low. Although the championship is only the 2nd tier of English football, the overall level of this league is quite high, ranking among the top 15 in the European league system without issue. This league has many players from 2nd and 3rd tier national teams, especially from Eastern and Northern European countries, which are plentiful. Many American national team players want to play here, but are often looked down upon. The championship is definitely a high-end league in the world. Many key players in the championship earn weekly wages exceeding 10,000, with an annual pre-tax income of 520,000, which certainly places them among the high-income groups in the UK. Chapter 481. Coming out so arrogantly? Do you think I'm made of clay? April 2nd, Emirates Stadium. 30 minutes before the match began, the entire stadium was filled with rhythmic cheers. On both sidelines, Sonke and Suarez were continuously making cross-field passes. As the two continued to pass, all the Arsenal fans were counting for them. 12, 13, 18. With a sigh, their long-distance passing ended at 18 passes. While the two were showcasing their passing skills, Atletico players watched Arsenal's half with a predatory gaze, similar to beasts observing their prey. After Suarez failed to control the ball, the Atletico fans in the away stand let out loud boos, and Atletico midfielder Gabby shouted loudly, "Get off, Circus!" Oh, the Atletico players are in good spirits. Seeing the provocation in the eyes of Atletico players, Sonke smiled and gave a couple of thumbs up towards the pitch. Seeing Sonke's reaction, Diego Costa showed a provocative smile and kept applauding Sonke. Damn, not backing down at all. The Bandit team lives up to its name. Sonke glanced at Atletico's players. Gabby, Coke, and Raul Garcia are all Spanish players. Chapter 482. Beastly goals. On the field, players from both sides were all clustered together. This area was filled with insults and threats in English, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Polish. Gundogan wanted to pull Miranda into the Arsenal crowd for a group beating. Atletico players immediately surrounded them, and Sonke pushed Godin into the Atletico crowd, prompting several other Atletico players to rush in. Suarez appeared to be reasoning with them, but then with a spin, Coke crouched down, covering his lower body. Another wave of conflict erupted. Although the physical contact was intense, both sides were very restrained, trying hard to provoke the other players into losing their composure. As players from top teams, both sides were quite measured and definitely avoided actions that would reduce their team's numbers. Often, it was just players from both sides pushing each other at the same time. Such conflicts wouldn't warrant a card. The referee worked hard to separate the players and called Sonke and Miranda aside, giving them a verbal warning before allowing the match to resume. The game continued, and both sides immediately threw themselves back into the match. making the two hosts in the studio exclaim in admiration. Chapter 483. 2 goals. Can they catch up? In the studio, Jean-June exclaimed, "Good goal." Son Koo scores the first goal for Arsenal. He single-handedly broke through Atletico's defense, creating space despite the Atletico defenders maintaining their positions, and scored under high difficulty. This is the strength of the world's most expensive player. Expensive for a reason. Jean-Lu added, "That's right. The only drawback of a player like Son Koo is the price. Although football is a team sport and defense relies on the whole, scoring really requires the genius touch of talented players." As the team with the fewest goals conceded in this season's Champions League, Atletico has only conceded 4 goals in 8 matches. From the recent games, we can see that Atletico players have excellent overall cooperation, making their defense incredibly solid. Arsenal's attack this time can't be considered a particularly good opportunity. It would have been lost on other forwards, but Son Koo can score, and the Atletico players have no complaints. Son Koo's 3 dribbles were basically half chances. I dare say that even Gundogan, who passed to him, didn't expect Son Koo to launch an attack from that pass. Based on his passing route, his intention was for Son Koo to head the ball to a teammate, letting Reyes organize the attack. Chapter 484. How will Atletico play away with a 2-goal deficit? After Son Koo scored his second goal, Wenger substituted Ramsey for Reyes and Arteta for Song. Ramsey grew up in an English football environment and was already immune to fierce defenses. During his time at Everton, Arteta faced countless tough defenders and often played as one himself. After the substitutions, Arsenal's passing and possession remained smooth and highly aggressive. Atletico players, after over 70 minutes of high-intensity play, began to show a significant drop in stamina. Seeing the situation was not right, Simeone decisively substituted Villa for a defensive player and switched Raul Garcia to maintain Atletico's mobility for the remainder of the match. His thinking was clear. Atletico's stamina had reached a bottleneck, and attempting to shoot against Arsenal would risk a counterattack. Trailing by 2 goals away from home, there were still ways to make adjustments when returning home. However, if the gap widened to 3 goals, it would be truly dire. In the final moments of the match, both teams engaged in a physical struggle in midfield, pushing until the end of the match. The moment the referee blew the final whistle, both teams' players bent over, holding their thighs. Chapter 485. Fighting lineup, specially treating Atletico. The afternoon after the league ended, Arsenal flew to Madrid on a private jet owned by their boss. Ever since Arsenal won the league and Champions League double last season, owner Kroenke has finally started to increase investment in the club. Over the past year, Arsenal has become one of the top 3 football clubs in the world in terms of commercial revenue, following Manchester United and Real Madrid, which made Kroenke pay more attention to the club. After learning about some American professional clubs, Son Koo understood why the old thief was reluctant to spend money on Arsenal. In the U.S., sports clubs have salary caps, and how much a team spends in a year is completely controllable. With ticket revenue and team-centered commercial income, a professional club can always be profitable. Kroenke also owns the Denver Nuggets, and regardless of their performance, ticket sales are good. NBA arenas are entertainment centers where families can go in the morning to enjoy various experiential games and have both meals at the arena. For many, watching a game is not the goal, but a part of their weekend life. This operational model is definitely more profitable than just watching a game. Chapter 486. If they dare to retaliate, hit them hard. At the Calderon Stadium, Arsenal players casually played a game of keep away on the field before the match. 5 players were passing, and 4 trying to intercept. Even in a very small area, they managed to quickly pass the ball, and there were moments where the intercepting players desperately sprinted and repeatedly missed opportunities. Not far away, Simeone watched the warming-up players with a serious expression, calculating how to break the deadlock. Arsenal's starting lineup caught him off guard. He really didn't expect Wenger to field such a lineup. In his eyes, the professor was an idealist. In his impression, Arsenal had nothing to do with counterattacking football. Unless suppressed by the opponent, Arsenal's strategy was always to attack. With Wenger fielding such a lineup, he was at a loss. It wasn't that Simeone hadn't anticipated Arsenal's tactics, but even if he was aware, he had no solution. In the last match, he had already experienced the strength of Arsenal players in high-intensity confrontations. To be honest, they were not inferior. With a 2-goal lead, Arsenal could play any tactical style, while Atletico hoped they would continue attacking. Chapter 487. Breaking through Atletico, advancing to the Champions League semifinals. In the locker room, Arsenal players adjusted and rested as they would for any regular match. The reason a 3-goal advantage can kill a game is that even if they concede a goal, they still have a 2-goal buffer. For a stronger team, losing is a very difficult situation. However, it must be admitted that Atletico's wave of attacks just before the end of the first half truly showcased their skill, taking advantage of Arsenal's defensive chaos. Atletico players applied high pressure in front of the penalty area, making it difficult for Arsenal players to even lift their feet. The high pressing for those few seconds is simply a masterpiece of total football. Sonku still holds the same opinion. If the Spanish team could use this Atletico lineup as a framework in the World Cup, they would have difficulty against Germany, but could compete against Argentina, Brazil, and the Netherlands. Once everyone adjusted, Wenger walked to the center of the locker room. We had achieved our pre-match goal in the first half, and I was very satisfied with everyone's performance. As long as we maintain the same state as in the first half, the opponent won't have any chances. We need to be prepared for a tough battle. And there's nothing wrong with that, but Atletico is not a team that can stop us. We must have that belief. Chapter 488. Unbeaten in 80 matches across seasons after Sonku scored, the professor immediately substituted him with Reyes and replaced Walcott with Chamberlain. If it had been anticipated that this match would be won so easily, Sonku estimated that with the old man's character, he would have certainly left Rosicky, Haleb, and Maicon on the bench, and even allowed 1 or 2 youth players to experience the atmosphere of the Champions League. In the subsequent match, neither side changed the score, and Arsenal won 5-1 on aggregate, overcoming the toughest opponent in this season's Champions League. In the post-match press conference, Simeone stated that the players had done their best, and losing to a team like Arsenal was not an unacceptable result. Arsenal is the defending champion and the biggest favorite to win this season. Losing to such an opponent is not shameful, although the score was a bit brutal. Even Simeone had to admit that the biggest challenge in this matchup was the inability to limit Sonku. Wenger stated that the match against Atletico would greatly help Arsenal's mentality moving forward. He believed that Atletico was a difficult barrier for all opponents, and this knockout round would elevate the players' mindset. Chapter 489. Ancelotti. What does Arsenal's undefeated streak have to do with me? In the Champions League semi-finals against Real Madrid, Arsenal's schedule still had them playing at home first and then away. Sonku was very satisfied with this draw, as the first leg of the Champions League semi-finals was only 3 days away from the league. If they played away first, they would have to recover on the first day after the league match. Early the next morning, they would have to go to Madrid, losing a whole morning. After lunch and a brief rest, they would need to hold a training session under the watchful eyes of Real Madrid staff. The travel fatigue combined with a match the next day meant that the training intensity couldn't be too high. That evening, they would go to the Bernabéu to scout the field, checking for slippery spots and bumps. The next morning would be tactical deployment and opponent analysis, and by the afternoon, they would have to face Real Madrid head-on. Given this, such an away trip was truly exhausting. Although the old man had tried to rotate players this week, the season was nearing its end, and everyone had varying degrees of accumulated fatigue. Of course, Sonku had shaken off his fatigue at the end of December and was being used moderately by the old man, so his form was still decent. However, the physical condition of the other Arsenal players was a bit precarious. Chapter 490. This is the rhythm of a dunk. When asked about Real Madrid's lineup this season, the professor smiled and said, "Sometimes I think this team in front of me is a joint team of Real Madrid and Tottenham. If viewed this way, the pressure on us is not that great. We have had satisfactory results against both teams. However, we still need to be prepared for extreme difficulties because in a match, no one can predict what will happen next." Seeing the old man's interview, Sonku couldn't help but laugh. How disdainful of Tottenham. Real Madrid, who lost to Arsenal, brought in Bale, who is accustomed to losing to Arsenal, along with Modric, who had previously joined Real Madrid. This group of Real Madrid players was described by the old man as a loser's alliance when facing Arsenal. At this stage of the season, coaches had little good to say in pre-match press conferences. Everyone was picking the most irritating remarks to throw at each other. On the other side of the semifinals, Sir Alex also mocked Mourinho. Jose's coaching career has provided young coaches with some erroneous insights. He has made teams win with a posture of weakness, yet he coaches strong teams. Chapter 491. Did they just overthrow Real Madrid right at the start? When Sonku leaped high between Real Madrid's 2 center-backs, Arsenal fans went wild for a moment. Block him. Seeing that Sonku was significantly taller than their 2 center-backs, Casillas nervously reminded his teammates. Without his reminder, Pepe and Ramos jumped, their bodies leaning towards Sonku. In the moment of suspension, Pepe put his hands behind him and started pushing. Ramos was blocked by Sun Ku and couldn't see anything, so he simply reached out with his right hand to pull Sun Ku's jersey. Two sneaky players. Sun Ku held his breath, tensed his body, and desperately maintained his balance in the air. At that moment, the ball was already above the heads of the three players. Pepe stretched his neck, trying to head the ball, but could only watch it fly over his head. Here it comes. At the moment the ball flew above his head, Sun Ku stabilized his body with core strength and deftly flicked it to the right rear, changing the ball's direction and sending it flying toward the upper right corner of the goal. Casillas on the goal line had already jumped in place when the ball reached Sun Ku's head, ready to dive for a save. However, just as the ball was heading for the goal, Casillas' body suddenly slumped in place. Chapter 492. Is this account being played by Inzaghi? With a sigh, Walcott headed the ball into the side netting. What kind of level is this? Seeing Walcott miss this opportunity, Sun Ku was so frustrated he wanted to go up and give him a kick. But that was impossible. People who are particularly harsh on teammates and friends are likely to end up as marginal figures in the interpersonal network. In 2 lifetimes, Sun Ku deeply understood one principle: no one is perfect. People easily see others' shortcomings, but often overlook their strengths. Take Walcott, for example. When the ball is off the pitch, he has a tendency to be overly joyful about shooting. Especially with headers, it's a source of happiness. Moreover, this guy's technique isn't particularly good, and his dribbling style is one-dimensional. If they encounter a bus parking team, Walcott's effectiveness is directly halved. But his strengths are also outstanding. His explosiveness and speed mean he will never be an ordinary player. As the saying goes, among all martial arts, speed is invincible. Once a player reaches a certain level of speed, a qualitative change occurs. The same opportunity earlier. The vast majority of players were unable to instantly shake off their defenders and create chances. Chapter 493. Hat-trick. Real Madrid was overwhelmed. In the stands, Arsenal fans were in high spirits, while Real Madrid fans were not to be outdone. Although they were vastly outnumbered by the home fans, they still had a strong sense of belief. On the sidelines, Wenger smiled and applauded the players on the field, then stood with his arms crossed along the touchline. Coincidentally, Ancelotti was also watching the game with his arms crossed at that moment, but it can be certain that the two were definitely not thinking about the same thing. In the broadcasting hall, Jean June said, Real Madrid had just equalized the score when Sun Ku once again put Arsenal ahead. From the replay of the goal, we can see that Sun Ku's positioning in those few seconds was very skillful. Fans with a football background should know how valuable such movement is. Jean-Louis added, That's right, it is indeed breathtaking. With that goal, Sun Ku almost ran circles around the defenders in the box. Even Inzaghi would have struggled to do that. In his 3 seasons at Arsenal, Sun Ku has experienced rapid growth in both skill and awareness. With his skill, even if he gets older and can't charge and strike like in his youth, Sun Ku can still have a place in the top leagues. Chapter 494. Has Real Madrid found a way to deal with Arsenal? Let's see. After Sun Ku scored the 4th goal, the Emirates Stadium was about to explode. If the game continued at this pace, the second leg would be meaningless. In today's world football, one must admit the fact that anyone who engages in an attacking battle with Arsenal is doomed. Besides Arsenal, Real Madrid is the most outstanding attacking team this season. In the previous life, Real Madrid faced Bayern in the Champions League semifinals, and as a result, Real Madrid beat Bayern so badly in 2 legs that they barely recognized their own team, conceding 5 goals over 2 matches. The Bavarian Giants almost lost their dignity, finishing the season beaten and bruised. The invincible team of the Bundesliga has been repeatedly exposed as frauds in the Champions League over the following years. Whether there is suspense left in the second leg largely depends on Real Madrid, not Arsenal. Arsenal's level has always been guaranteed. What is feared is the unpredictable performance of the opponent, which could lead to a disaster. After conceding that goal, Ancelotti was already anxious. He gathered the Real Madrid players around him, speaking loudly about something. The Real Madrid players wiped their sweat while looking at their coach, as if trying to understand something difficult to digest. Chapter 495. A goal-scoring battle of top stars. April 29th. Bernabéu Stadium. Arsenal entered the stadium 3 hours early. Sun Ku was organizing his gear while listening to Suarez and others discussing the renovation plans for the Bernabéu Stadium. Suarez and Arteta watched local television last night at the hotel and saw the news about the Bernabéu renovation. To make the Bernabéu Stadium the most modern stadium and a fan paradise, Real Madrid launched a stadium renovation design competition last year, which will adopt the Champions Plan. It is said that the renovation plans sparked heated discussions from the start of the stadium design tender, drawing the attention of all of Spain. The renovation cost of the new stadium reached €5.2 billion, which is even higher than the cost of building the new Emirates Stadium. Even more impressive is that Real Madrid is financing the entire renovation with loans. No, they even borrowed an additional €50 million. They do not invest a penny of their own money, only paying back €25 million to the bank each year over a repayment period of 35 years. Real Madrid is wealthy. They really don't care about this small amount of money. This money will be used to build commercial areas, entertainment areas, dining areas, museums, and hotels equipped with underground parking. Additionally, the stadium will have a retractable roof installed, allowing the Bernabéu Stadium to host different types of events. Chapter 496. My life is for football. After scoring, Son rolled several times on the pitch to cushion the impact on his body. The action he just performed, even for a professional player, is dangerous. If he couldn't protect himself and landed flat on the ground, he could potentially break a few bones in his chest. Son lay on his back, vigorously waving his fists. For the goal, he really gave it his all. Seconds later, his teammates rushed over and surrounded him. In the broadcasting hall, Jean June exclaimed, "Beautiful." Son scored his second goal of the match, his 17th goal in this season's Champions League. To get a shot off before the defender, he risked it all, completely throwing himself into the air. As a result, Real Madrid's hopes of advancing have become slim. Real Madrid can score, but they can't stop Arsenal's attacks at all. Jean-Luc commented, "That's right, for Real Madrid to complete a comeback at home, they need to ramp up their offense." However, this tactic is exactly what Arsenal wants, although neither side can defend against each other's top players. With someone like Son on the field, Arsenal will not lack for goals. Chapter 497. Sir Alex. There is nothing more enjoyable than beating Wenger's son, and Cristiano Ronaldo were substituted off at the same time. And both teams entered a stalemate because they lost their key attacking points. With the referee's whistle, Arsenal advanced to the Champions League final with an aggregate score of 8-5. At the moment the match ended, fans from both sides stood up and applauded the players. Real Madrid fans have a characteristic, besides Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. If other teams perform excellently at the Bernabéu, they do not hesitate to give their applause. From this perspective, Real Madrid truly is a top international club. However, over the years, very few teams have earned the recognition of the home fans. Through this match, Arsenal won the recognition of the Bernabéu fans. They truly conquered the Bernabéu Stadium. In the post-match press conference, Ancelotti smiled wryly and said, "I feel very sorry for not being able to overturn the opponent at home and advance to the Champions League final. I want to say sorry to the fans. In fact, we prepared thoroughly for this match, and our tactics worked during the game. But unfortunately, the opponent had a superstar in their lineup, and we could not contain him despite trying all methods." Chapter 498. The milestone battle begins 3 days after the Champions League semi-finals ended. Arsenal welcomed West Bromwich Albion, ranked 16th in the Premier League, for the 36th round of the league. As of now, West Bromwich has 36 points and has not yet reached the passing score of 38 points. However, based on this season's situation, even if they do not reach the passing line, they can still be safe, as the teams in the bottom 3 are performing poorly and are basically drowning, not far from relegation. Norwich, ranked 3rd from the bottom, only has 31 points. And it seems that despite their efforts, there is still a glimmer of hope. However, their last 3 matches are nothing short of a death sentence. They aren't even hellish fixtures. Their final 3 opponents are Manchester United, Chelsea, and Arsenal. This schedule is beyond what Norwich can handle. Even Real Madrid would struggle. If Barcelona were to come, given their casual playing style, they might only manage to scrape 1 point from Chelsea, and Mourinho would likely issue a death order. With the simple fixtures earlier in the season not yielding enough points, Norwich's Premier League journey is essentially over. Norwich's relegation is a pity for Son, who remembers the season he just transferred to Arsenal, when Norwich caused significant trouble for Arsenal in both matches. Chapter 499. Sir Alex almost forgot to breathe. May 6th. Old Trafford. Arsenal arrived at the stadium 2.5 hours early. Son was joking around with his teammates, lightening the mood. The team's morale was quite good. The Arsenal players are currently very confident, especially when facing Manchester United. Over the past decade, Manchester United has dominated Arsenal for 8 of those years. The decline in Arsenal's performance in many seasons has often been due to losses against Manchester United. Moreover, Sir Alex is a master of psychological warfare. In many important matches, he would hype up the significance of the game, often making it sound as if losing would lead to the sky falling down. Arsenal's midfield and forward players, primarily young technical players, simply can't handle such immense pressure and often make significant mistakes when facing Manchester United. Later, Sir Alex became even bolder, predicting the entire season's trajectory for Arsenal at the start of the season, and he was right every time. This match is the best opportunity to establish the Arsenal dynasty on Manchester United's grave, and everyone is eager to defeat Manchester United. During the first warm-up, Son Koo encountered Rooney. Just as Son Koo was about to nod and greet him without much conversation, Rooney spoke first. "Is your brow bone okay?" Chapter 500. The Arsenal dynasty has arrived. The first 15 minutes of the first half seemed to pass in the blink of an eye, with players from both teams engaged in a relentless physical struggle. In those 15 minutes, Arsenal had 2 shots on goal, while Manchester United only had 1. As Arsenal's absolute core, Son Koo became the focal point for Manchester United's players. When Arsenal had possession, the attention Manchester United players paid to Son Koo was meticulous. In other matches this season, Son Koo would only face tight marking after receiving the ball. But today, he was being interfered with even during his off-the-ball runs. However, Son Koo saw this as no problem. Once he created a situation where one move could affect the whole team, it would provide space for his teammates to play. In the 19th minute, Manchester United lost possession in Arsenal's penalty area. Silva picked up the ball to find someone, but 3 Arsenal midfielders were close by. Son Koo was next to Carrick, and behind him was Hummels, who was ready to rush in and take him down. Just as Silva looked up, Suarez on the left sprinted back to the center circle to receive the ball, while Son Koo accelerated towards the right front of the midfield. Chapter 501. Premier League three-peat. At the moment Son Koo scored, the Manchester United fans at Old Trafford fell silent. All that could be heard was the cheers of Arsenal fans, surrounded by his Arsenal teammates. Son Koo opened his arms and laughed joyfully while hugging 5 or 6 players in front of him. On the sidelines, the professor waved his arms vigorously, turning back to high-five each member of the coaching staff. Not far away, Ferguson had his hands in his coat pockets, his face flushed. Everyone realized that the grand finale of this season's Premier League was about to unfold. In the last 2 seasons, whenever Arsenal scored first, their opponents had never managed to come back. Once the opponents were forced into a corner, they would typically be swept away by Arsenal's tidal wave of attacks. In the broadcast studio, Jean June said, "As the match nears its end, Son Koo has scored the most important goal of the season for Arsenal. Manchester United now has only 1 substitution left, and I believe Sir Ferguson will choose to go all in and fight Wenger to the death." Throughout Sir Ferguson's lengthy managerial career, Wenger's Arsenal has always been Manchester United's biggest rival. Over the years of competition in the Premier League, Manchester United has consistently exerted absolute pressure on Arsenal, both domestically and in European competitions. Chapter 502. Let us see who dares to mess with me in the future. At the end of this season, one person will bid farewell to the club. He is one of the greatest figures in the club's history. He has won 5 FA Cups for League Cups, 10 Community Shields, 1 European Cup Winners' Cup, and 12 Premier League titles. It was he who turned the unattainable dream into reality. Please welcome the greatest manager in the history of British football, Sir Alex Ferguson. Amidst the enthusiastic cheers of the announcer, Sir Alex took the microphone amidst applause. "I didn't prepare a speech. I'll just say whatever comes to mind. I hope to clearly express what this club means to me. First of all, I want to thank Manchester United, not just the club management, not just the medical staff, not just the coaches and players, and not just the fans, but everyone. My experiences with you are the most precious memories of my life. Thank you. I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to coach the best players in this country. They're certainly not just outstanding players for Manchester United. They have contributed many outstanding matches to the club in a dignified manner, and they did a great job." Chapter 503. A stunning start. How will Manchester United break through? The main reason they can stay in the Premier League long-term is that they cannot buy players who can significantly improve the team, nor can they acquire promising young players. In the current Premier League, apart from the future Big Six, there are also traditional Premier League teams like Everton, West Ham, Newcastle, and Villa. Even teams like Southampton and Crystal Palace have a good reputation both in England and worldwide. Reputation is indeed very important for a club. Norwich has been in the Premier League for 3 seasons, but many people still consider them a half Premier League half-championship club. The club lacks significant financial resources, and both their hardware and software conditions are average. Many believe that once they are relegated, returning will be very difficult, because whether in the Championship or League Two, the competition is exceptionally brutal, and surviving in such leagues requires a great deal of effort. But to be honest, for a professional player to play in the Championship is already quite an achievement, because even in the Championship, there are only 24 teams, and each team's first team has only 25 player slots, totaling only 600 job positions. Chapter 504. After some calculations, Manchester United is destined to face a disaster one day. What kind of bullshit luck is this? This guy didn't even look at the goal. At the moment Son Koo scored, the Arsenal fans in Wembley Stadium erupted in cheers. The sudden blow, combined with the excitement of the fans, caused Cantona, who was sitting in the commentary booth, to lose control. He forgot the staff's repeated reminders before the game and let out a curse. Hey, brother, calm down. As you said, there is plenty of time left in the game. You can curse all you want on the way home. Seeing the proud Frenchman lose his composure, Adams remarked with gentlemanly words in a tone that wasn't quite gentlemanly enough. To prevent these two from suddenly getting into a fight and cursing in front of dozens of fans who bought the rights to the FA Cup final, the host quickly said, "Let's take a look at the goal replay. The process of this goal is simply unbelievable. Tony, Eric, what do you think of that goal? Was it a beautiful attempt or a display of individual ability? You know, Son Koo has scored many incredible goals in the past 2 seasons. Chapter 505. FA Cup Champions. Suarez and Gundogan stood over the ball simultaneously. After Son Koo gave them some instructions, he moved to the back post of the penalty area. The Manchester United players were on high alert, with the 2 players always staying close to Son Koo, not leaving him for a moment. Son Koo continuously used his body to charge, creating chaos in Manchester United's penalty area. On Arsenal's side, Vermaelen, Silva, Vertonghen, and Son all rushed into the penalty area, leaving only Royce and Walcott to double-team Di Maria in the backfield, while Manchester United kept 9 defensive players in the penalty area. There were several physical confrontations between players in the penalty area, with Arsenal players continuously shielding Son Koo, while Manchester United players stood their ground. Both sides vented their frustrations through physical confrontations. As both sides began to throw elbows, the referee quickly stopped the game and warned the players. Son Koo and Vidic were still tangled together, while Hummels beside them held his chest in pain, signaling to the referee that Son Koo had elbowed him. Son Koo laughed and shook his head, using exaggerated body language to indicate that the opponent was like a delicate girl. The referee had no intention of mediating between the 2 teams. His purpose in stopping the game was to warn the players and let everyone calm down. Chapter 506. Lisbon. The final battle of the season. For professional football, this is the best of times and the worst of times. More and more wealthy individuals are willing to invest in football, stadiums are getting bigger, and player salaries are rising. However, with the influx of funds, the patience of owners and fans towards clubs is dwindling. It is hard to find a head coach who can stay at a club for decades like Ferguson or Wenger. If a club fails to win championships consistently, public opinion about them can become a roller coaster. This year, if they win the championship, they are praised. If they don't win it the next year, they are criticized. Son Koo knows very well that many people like Arsenal simply because Arsenal is a champion. Only a small number of people are patient enough to understand a club's history and thus develop a fondness for it. Such cases are rare. Most fans are highlight fans and news fans, and their understanding of a team mostly comes from those condensed few minutes. So as long as Arsenal is no longer a champion, most fans will turn to support the champion. In this situation, it is no surprise that Manchester United under Ferguson faces widespread skepticism. Chapter 507. Meeting at the peak, life and death at the start. As the season nears its end, many teams have already entered the transfer period early. Since this is a World Cup year, many clubs hope to finalize their desired players before the World Cup. It is well known that the World Cup is often a major year for player transfers. After a World Cup, outstanding players usually attract the attention of big clubs. Therefore, many clubs want to finalize their desired players before the World Cup. If a player shines at the World Cup, their market value may surge dramatically. At this time, clubs are engaged in a game of chess with each other, as well as with players. Some clubs believe their players will perform well at the World Cup, so they hold off on selling, waiting to see the market after the tournament. Of course, this kind of negotiation is like gambling. No one knows whether the outcome will be a gem or just a stone. Some players see their market value skyrocket by tens of millions after a World Cup. while others get labeled as flops after just a few matches. The impact of the World Cup on a player is immense. Some step into a prestigious club, while others fall from star status to mediocrity. Chapter 508. No more pretending. Van Persie turns. Just when everyone thought Arsenal would score first. De Gea showcased his goalkeeping skills at a crucial moment, using the tip of his finger to flick the ball out of the goal line. Yes, he flicked it out of the goal line. At the moment his fingertip touched the ball, he increased the friction, causing the ball to change direction at the last moment and roll out along the left post. At this moment, the sounds in the stadium split into sighs and cheers. Arsenal earned a corner taken by Royce. As he stood at the corner flag, Arsenal and Manchester United players began a complex game of muscle collisions and hide-and-seek in the penalty area. At this moment, Son could suddenly move from the back post towards the center of the penalty area. Seeing Son arrive in the center of the penalty area, Royce immediately took the corner kick. The Manchester United players rushed towards the center of the penalty area. The next moment, Son suddenly dashed from the center of the penalty area towards the edge of the penalty area, catching the Manchester United players completely off guard as they never expected Arsenal to take the corner kick to such an unheadable position. What were they trying to do? Set up Son for a header? In the next instant, the Manchester United players almost simultaneously moved into their assigned areas. Chapter 509. 2 goals and 1 assist. This is the standard of a unique star. On the field, Van Persie slid on his knees in excitement, while Arsenal players shook their heads helplessly. Outside the stadium, Ferguson waved his hands excitedly, while the professor shook his head in resignation. In just 20 minutes, the situation on the field changed dramatically. In the broadcast studio, Jean-June smiled and shook his head, incredulously saying, "It's truly unexpected. I believe very few people could have predicted that Manchester United, despite not dominating the game, would take a 2-goal lead against Arsenal." Van Persie contributed 2 world-class goals in the match, making him Manchester United's standout player so far. Manchester United's 3 goals completely disrupted Arsenal's rhythm. In the first 30 minutes, they managed only 4 shots but scored 3 goals, which is highly efficient. This should be the first time Arsenal has trailed by 2 goals in 2 seasons. Zhang, what do you think about the upcoming matches? Zhang Lu. From the first half hour of the match, Manchester United's players showed very strong tactical execution and high efficiency, and they also had some luck. 2 world-class goals plus an own goal from a defender. Manchester United's luck is indeed quite remarkable. It is foreseeable that Manchester United players, leading by 2 goals, will definitely execute their existing tactics resolutely. Chapter 510. Son breaks through alone. The epic battle comes to a grand conclusion. Who would have thought? In this parallel world, Walcott has actually learned Van Persie's volley and is playing it quite well. The high-level competition and strong confidence have transformed this near top-tier player. This situation is miraculous, but also expected. In the current Arsenal, Son is undoubtedly the absolute core, Suarez is the second in command, and Reyes is the core of midfield organization. Walcott's status among Arsenal's attacking players is probably around 4th or 5th. Compared to his previous life, his responsibilities in the team have changed drastically. Arsenal does not need him to conquer the city. He is a support player for the 3 main cores in the front line. During the match, Walcott's role is often a moving pivot in the transition from defense to attack. Indeed, a speedster can also serve as a pivot. His task can be summarized in 4 words: dog catching a frisbee. Do not underestimate this task. It is the greatest guarantee for Arsenal's transition from defense to attack. Once the team's defense and midfield cannot quickly move the ball, they often kick it to the right front of the field, allowing Walcott to use his speed to exploit the defenders and recover the ball in the front line. In positional play, Walcott must remain alert at all times. Once a midfielder passes the ball to the right side of the penalty area, he must rush into the area immediately, secure the ball, and look for attacking opportunities. Chapter 511. 4 goals to glory. The Arsenal era begins. The moment Son scored, the stands where Arsenal fans were located erupted in cheers. Amidst tens of thousands of live fans and over 1 billion viewers worldwide, Arsenal's captain raised his arms high and pumped his fist. Arsenal players gathered around Son, celebrating wildly towards the stands. In the commentary booth, Adams stood up and pumped his fist, while Cantona, sitting not far from him, looked grim. The host excitedly said, "Son's goal, just now, could very well be the most spectacular goal of the Champions League final." With less than 15 minutes left in the match. Before this, Robin had a great chance to help Manchester United take the lead. but he seemed unfocused at the moment of the shot. Let's take a look at the replay of the goal. After Arsenal conceded, Sonku almost sprinted back to the defense like a sprinter, and after neutralizing Manchester United's attack, he scored the goal by himself. I don't know what prompted him to make such a move, but everything is unbelievable. As soon as the host finished speaking, Adams proudly said, "This is the intuition of genius." What sets genius players apart from others is their insight that ordinary people do not possess. Chapter 5:12. Shocking news. England's locker room exploded. With the conclusion of the Champions League final, Arsenal became the biggest winner of the 2013 to 2014 season. From the start of the season, Arsenal crushed all opponents, lifting the Community Shield, UEFA Super Cup, and FIFA Club World Cup, achieving a cross-season sextuplet. The club went even more insane this season, maintaining an unbeaten record across all competitions, which is unprecedented in European football. It is unlikely there will be such a phenomenal season in the future. Arsenal left many unforgettable classic matches this season. They defeated Mourinho's Chelsea with a powerful attack in the UEFA Super Cup. In the Champions League round of 16, they overwhelmed the tough Bayern. In the quarterfinals, they fought hard against the uncompromising Atletico Madrid. In the semifinals, they outscored Real Madrid, who upheld an attacking philosophy this season. The most classic was their 3 victories over Manchester United at the end of the season, becoming the true European dominator. In UEFA rankings for the best Champions League lineup, 6 players from Arsenal, including Sonku, Suarez, Song, Gundogan, Silva, and Szczesny, were selected. As the saying goes, there are no best players, only the best team. Chapter 5:13. England's squad shocks the world amidst overwhelming rumors. The England team welcomed their first warm-up opponent, Peru, at Wembley Stadium before the World Cup. To simulate the match against Uruguay, the FA invited a South American team that did not qualify for the World Cup. Sonku felt this choice was somewhat inappropriate, as the real purpose of this match was to test the form of fringe players. Players who have truly experienced Peru's strength may very well be lying on the beach 2 weeks later, brushing off fake news about the England team. In Sonku's view, Peru cannot simulate Uruguay's form. Rather than trying to mimic their playing style, it would be better to play against Mexico. South Americans are a fascinating race. Many South American players do not deliberately train in gyms, but are still very strong. Additionally, most African players have naturally good body proportions, and their coordination and rhythm are excellent. Instead of trying to imitate the playing style of Uruguayan players, it would be better to find teams like Mexico or Colombia. Mexico almost always makes it to the round of 16 in every World Cup, but only to the round of 16. As the top team in North America, Mexico has always been a world powerhouse, and players from this country play in unconventional ways, often handling the ball in unbelievable manners. Chapter 5:14. 7th favorite to win on June 1st, the England team announced its 23-man squad for the World Cup. Goalkeepers: 1. Joe Hart, 13. Ben Foster, 22. Fraser Forster. Defenders: 2. Kyle Walker, 3. Ashley Cole, 5. Gary Cahill, 6. John Terry, 12. Jagielka, 16. Phil Jones, 22. Smalling, 23. Luke Shaw. Midfielders: 4. Steven Gerrard, 7. Jack Wilshere, 8. Frank Lampard, 14. Theo Walcott, 15. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, 17. James Milner, 19. Raheem Sterling, 20. Jordan Henderson, 21. Ross Barkley. Forwards: 9. Sonku, 10. Wayne Rooney, 11. Danny Welbeck, 18. Ricky Lambert. The release of this list immediately caused a stir among the English media. The media carefully counted the numbers. The England squad was not the previously mentioned 28 players, but 30. On the second day of training, Everton's Barkley and Tottenham's Walker joined the team. According to many media sources, these 2 players took a flight back to London early in the morning on the second day of training camp. Chapter 5:15. This playing style? 23 players are just enough. Sonku spent £60 to buy an analysis report about the World Cup from a betting company. In the football world, the most comprehensive control of information is held by betting companies. They spend a lot of money to purchase match data and player information from clubs, establishing a huge database. Then they study an algorithm, inputting all the factors that could potentially influence the match, and simulate the results. With the support of vast information, their simulated results reportedly achieve over 60% accuracy, which is quite impressive. Of course, simulated results are always just simulations, and the football world is ever-changing. As long as there is no manipulation behind the scenes, the outcome of the match often exceeds the algorithm's estimates. When the 1998 World Cup began, who would have thought that the French team would ultimately lift the trophy? Before the 2004 European Championship, who could have imagined that Greece would make it to the final and ultimately defeat the host nation Portugal? Thus, odds should be taken lightly. If one wants to add a bit of excitement to watching the matches, spending a few bucks for fun is fine. Winning is a chance to brag. And losing doesn't affect life. Countless facts throughout history have proven that gamblers rarely have a good ending. Chapter 516. The strongest England team in history? The media's old rhetoric. The match between England and the USA is like a father-son game. No matter how many goals are scored, it won't create much of a ripple in the hearts of England fans. Moreover, the way England plays during the match has raised many questions from the media. Having experienced the chaotic online atmosphere of certain websites in previous lives, Sunko feels that the current English media is just about the same. If we push the timeline back 10 years and let them see the online environment of that era, they would understand how clear the mental landscape was a decade ago. 10 years later, the persona of a major country's lighthouse of the earth suddenly collapsed, leaving spiritual seekers worldwide without a pillar of support. What these people believed in for the first half of their lives was ultimately revealed to be severely inflated. Their spiritual world seems to have undergone severe trauma. In real life, they look like normal people, but in the online world, they act like wild dogs, like a source of pollution, creating spiritual contamination everywhere. Some have even turned into contrarians, opposing anything beneficial to the country. These individuals generally share a common trait. They have not received proper education since childhood, lack the ability to discern right from wrong, and are particularly easy to brainwash. Chapter 517. World Cup Opening Match. Let's score goals to crush the Italian team. With 3 days left until the World Cup starts and 5 days until the group stage of Group D kicks off, the England team flew from New Jersey to Manaus, Brazil. Ideally, with the World Cup approaching, teams should arrive at the host country at least a week in advance to allow players to fully adapt to the local climate and time difference, preferably playing a warm-up match as well. As a country with vast territory and abundant natural resources, Brazil possesses enviable resources that other countries covet, but it also faces difficult historical legacy issues. The slums, also known as favelas, present a challenge for Brazil's development. The Brazilian government has long sought to renovate these areas, rebuilding slums and creating new relief zones. However, it is awkward that the more actively the slums are renovated, the more impoverished people move into them. Although the living conditions in these slums are poor and there are many health and safety issues, the residents still have a strong sense of happiness. Sunka finds this somewhat difficult to understand, but people from different living environments cannot comprehend each other. In the first half of this year, Brazil's crime rate rose by 44% compared to previous years, and frequent worker strikes demanding higher wages have occurred. Chapter 518. Top players are top players everywhere. Amazon Arena. As night quietly fell, Sunka stood in the center of the field face to face with Pirlo, holding the team flag. Although the stadium can only accommodate over 40,000 people, Sunka felt that the surrounding mountains were packed with people. The lights of the Amazon Arena illuminated the field, allowing Sunka to truly experience the feeling of being in the spotlight. The 35-year-old Pirlo, sporting a thick beard with hair nearly covering his neck, looked completely different from his younger self. In the animal kingdom, it is said that thick fur is a display of strength for male creatures. The referee briefly asked Pirlo whether to flip for heads or tails, and Pirlo indicated for Sunka to guess. Sunka decisively guessed heads, but the referee tossed the coin into the air and placed it on his hand, then said tails. Damn. Pirlo unhesitatingly chose the ball, and Sunka opted for the half with more England fans. Media area of the stadium. Host Martin Tyler and England legend forward Lineker were introducing the starting lineups of both sides. The England team set up a 4-2-3-1 formation. Joel keeper, Joe Hart. Chapter 519. Dare to fight back? This is the ability of the offensive core. Amazon Arena. The live camera focused on Prandelli, the Italian coach, who was already wearing a mask of pain. Not far away, Hodgson was seated on the coaching bench, smiling as he watched the field, then turned to discuss the situation with Lampard. As the true leader of Chelsea in recent years, Lampard became one of the most influential figures in the locker room alongside Terry and Drogba. Over the years, many coaches have come and gone at Chelsea. Any coach who dared to have thoughts against Lampard was dealt with by the magic lamp. Whoever dares to exclude him from the game will lose their job. However, In the live footage, Lampard appeared to be in good spirits, discussing business matters with the head coach. Seeing this scene, Martin Tyler, sitting in the broadcast booth, smiled and said, "Based on the state of the England substitutes, this England team is very united." Lineker immediately took over the conversation. Yes, England has never lacked good players, but it rarely forms strong cohesion. This World Cup will definitely be different. Everyone knows that as long as they unite, they can achieve good results. From today's match, it is clear that Italy's tactics are very targeted. Their formation is very effective against teams with wingers. Chapter 520, 3 goals and 1 assist. Playing against Italy is just about racking up stats. After England scored their third goal, the Italian players fell into silence. The third goal by England severely impacted their morale, and they were now at a loss for what to do. After a brief clash at the beginning of the match, England gradually found their rhythm. They realized that just placing 3 players in the front line was enough to deal with Italy's defense. Among the 4 defenders of the Italian team, except for Darmian, who has some speed, the other 3 players are all tall and robust. In several confrontations during the first half, Walcott completely overwhelmed Chiellini. After Marchisio pulled one back, Chiellini shamelessly assisted once, but he was completely absent from the live broadcast during England's goal. For the remainder of the first half, England no longer pursued counterattacks after gaining possession, and Sonko began to withdraw repeatedly to support, leaving Italy with few good options. As the first half ended, the England players walked towards the tunnel laughing and joking, while the Italian players mostly kept their heads down with little communication among them. In the locker room, the England players were in good spirits, exchanged a few words, and then started hydrating and changing clothes. Chapter 521, Media. Sonko scores full marks, other players barely pass. England's 4-1 victory over Italy in the first group match surprised many. Although England had also beaten Italy in a friendly, the standards of friendlies and the World Cup are completely different. It should be noted that Italy has always been one of the toughest teams in world football. Regardless of winning or losing, it is extremely rare to see them concede a large score in a major tournament. Faced with an England team featuring superstars, Italy's concrete defense was the most suitable strategy. Prandelli's initial strategy of deploying a Christmas tree formation seemed to be a targeted approach, yet they unexpectedly conceded 4 goals. Could it be that Italy is no longer capable? Absolutely not, judging from their recent performances and World Cup qualifiers. This Italian team is at least decent in the history of Italian football. Italy finished as runners-up in the 2012 European Championship, where they were once considered by the media as the most likely team to defeat Spain. In this World Cup qualifying campaign, Italy achieved 6 wins and 4 draws, securing their spot as group leaders without any suspense, which is considered a solid performance in the history of Italian football. Chapter 522, Free Kick. Can we get something with some technical flair? During the tactical preparation meeting the day before the match, Hodgson announced the starting lineup for the next day's game in the conference room. Goalkeeper, Joe Hart. Defenders, Jones, Jagielka, Cahill, Walker. Defensive midfielders, Wilshere, Henderson. Attacking midfielder, Rooney. Left winger, Sturridge. Right winger, Walcott. Center forward, Sonko. Upon hearing Hodgson read out the starting lineup, many England players showed expressions of surprise. Sonko glanced at his teammates. Walker clenched his fists. Jagielka was frozen on the spot. Wilshere and Henderson both wore satisfied smiles, and Sturridge was beaming. These players clearly did not expect to get a starting opportunity in the second match after a big win in the first game. Among those rotated out, Terry and Gerrard remained silent. Milner seemed contemplative, and Sterling appeared somewhat anxious, while Ashley Cole displayed an expression of compliance. Hodgson scanned the players and chuckled, saying, I discussed this with you all during training camp. I said every player would have a chance to perform, and it seems you haven't taken my word seriously. Chapter 523. Uruguay crumbled in just 25 minutes. Watching 2 core England players argue openly on the field, Lineker furrowed his brow in the commentary box. Everything happening before him suddenly reminded him of a news story he had seen 2 weeks prior. It seems the rumors were not unfounded. He couldn't understand what young players were thinking these days. Why create such a scene over trivial matters when they have such great prospects ahead? Sigh. Is this what the England team is like? Next to him, host Martin Tyler was still trying to paint a rosy picture. Sonko and Rooney both want to contribute to the England team. This team had a lot of ambition. From the player's perspective, their feelings are completely understandable. Let's see how Rooney handles this ball. As Martin Tyler commented, he tugged at Lineker's arm, signaling him to say something too. As a commentator known for his dense commentary, Lineker's silence at this moment could easily lead the media to speculate. Lineker. Rooney did not choose to take a long run up. This position is usually for controlling the angle to hit the backside of the wall, and there is also a possibility of tactical free kick. Chapter 524. Even in a crushing match, the double D's dare not coexist. The moment Son Coup scored, all England players raised their arms. While the emotions of the Uruguay players were incredibly dejected, some had their hands on their hips, others rested their hands on their thighs, and Jimenez, who was dispossessed, only regained his composure seconds after Son Coup's goal, dejectedly holding his head. At this moment, a desperate thought emerged in the minds of all Uruguay players. If Costa Rica managed to beat Italy, their World Cup journey would essentially be over. Once such a thought surfaced, it could either suffocate them, cause their heart rates to spike, or leave them mentally and physically exhausted. After the game resumed, these emotions erupted almost simultaneously among the Uruguay players. In the commentary box, host Martin Tyler and Lineker appeared very relaxed. Martin Tyler. Jimenez was too nervous. He should have anticipated this moment before participating in the World Cup. Although Son Coup did not maintain constant aggression in the front line, let us not forget that he has been a top attacking midfielder in the Premier League for 3 seasons. The recent goal conceded fully exposed his lack of match experience. In events of this level, even a small flaw can be magnified infinitely. Chapter 525. The pseudo-strong team advances with 3 wins. At the post-match press conference, Hodgson found himself once again under fire from the English media. English reporters maintained their uncompromising style, first questioning Hodgson's decision to make extensive substitutions. They then questioned the starting choices of Sturridge and Henderson, and finally criticized the decision to play Gerrard. Hodgson sat up straight and replied with a neutral expression. The World Cup is different from club competitions. I must first consider the players' physical condition and observe their form during the match. We all want the England team to win the championship. But you know it's hard to rely solely on 11 players to play through every match. If the same players are used in every game, there would be no need for a squad of 23. In this team, most players need to earn their opportunities through competition, and we need to identify the players in the best form during the group stage, while others must be ready at all times. I believe that even if I don't make personnel adjustments in this match, you will still have similar problems, so I don't care about your thoughts. Chapter 526. The 6th goal. The role of star players is indeed too important. In the last round of the group stage, every team exerted their utmost effort. Some players were trying to help their teams advance to the knockout stage. Some wanted to demonstrate their value to the club, and many were looking for a new home for themselves, even though there have been countless meteoric players in previous World Cups. And everyone knows that buying players during World Cup years is akin to taking over at a high price. Many clubs still cannot control themselves. Many clubs are like gamblers, seeing players shine on the World Cup stage and thinking they can bring them back to carve out the raw gems. After the 3 group matches of the Colombian team, there were reports that Real Madrid wanted to sign James Rodriguez, and substantial contact was made within a few days. This transfer can be considered one of the most regrettable and unsuccessful transfers in Real Madrid's history, even more so than the later deal for Hazard. Although Hazard's transfer fee was higher, Real Madrid's failure in his case was clear. It was due to too many injuries. Logically, 28 years old is the golden age for professional players. In his last season at Chelsea, Hazard made 37 appearances in the Premier League, contributing 16 goals and 15 assists, showcasing top-tier performance. Chapter 527. A shooting player can't pass happily. After Son Coup scored, Greek captain Karagounis lost his cool, rushing into the penalty area and shouting at the defenders, his neck veins bulging. If this were a Cthulhu novel, he would have lost control and transformed into a monster in the next moment. The Greek center-back argued loudly, and, as the 2 players got closer, Son Coup was close enough to almost shout for the first round to start. As a result, several Greek players gathered together, shouting and unifying their thoughts. When the match resumed, the Greek players basically all switched to Rhino mode, constantly crashing into the English players on the field. The 2 teams fought repeatedly in the 20-meter area in front of the center circle for 10 minutes. Almost playing rugby, with the football being contested in midfield and unable to stay long in either half. The Greek midfield was rough, but the trio of Rooney, Milner, and Wilshere was also very fierce, especially Rooney and Wilshere, who tackle hard, showing a tendency towards violence. Both sides continuously sent players into midfield, players like Sterling and Walcott. once on the battlefield, couldn't stand up. Despite the high-intensity contest, neither team had a player receive a yellow card. Chapter 528. Advancing to the quarterfinals. The real test has just begun. As the match resumed, Karagounis continued to hold on, and the Greek players were still fighting. In the 64th minute, Greece substituted their center-forward Mitroglou for the already staggering Samaras. Samaras, who played for the Scottish giants Celtic, had been making short sprints between the front and midfield and was now unable to run due to lactic acid buildup. Soon, signs of cramping appeared for Wilshere as well. The former Prince of Arsenal was a pure goblin shell, with an orc soul, unafraid of the opponent's collisions. However, his small frame was not durable. Hodgson, considering the important matches ahead, did not let Wilshere push through. At this time, sitting on the England bench were Gerrard, Lampard, Henderson, and Barkley, all of whom could go in and fight. Compared to the somewhat reckless Henderson and inexperienced Barkley, it was clearly more prudent to send in the veterans. No matter how urgent the situation, at least their mentality wouldn't collapse, and they could perform to their full potential. After a brief consideration, Hodgson substituted Gerrard for Wilshere. Although Gerrard had given Suarez a goal shortly after coming on in the second group match, for the Liverpool captain who had weathered many storms, he could handle anything that happened. Chapter 529. England versus Netherlands. Who is worse? After the first round of knockout matches in the World Cup, most fans felt that their teams were lacking in some way. But when meeting fans of other teams, they insisted that their teams had hope. After the quarterfinals were determined, the matchups for the quarterfinals were automatically generated according to the schedule. Upper half, Brazil versus Colombia. Germany versus France. Lower half, England versus Netherlands. Argentina vs Belgium. Upon seeing this matchup, many casual fans felt that the betting companies indeed had something, as the favorites to win before the matches were indeed in the quarterfinals. The only disappointment was the Spanish team. The golden generation of the bullfighters brought endless sorrow to the newly emerging Spanish fans over the past 7 or 8 years. Before 2008, the number of Spanish fans in the country showed a trend of being crushed by world powers. At that time, there was still a year until Barcelona's golden era, and only a few fans would support the Spanish team. Unfortunately, the performance of the Spanish team during those years was even less stable than that of the England team, earning them the somewhat mocking nickname kings of the qualifiers. Despite having La Liga, since being eliminated by Nigeria in 1998 as a seeded team, no one regarded them as favorites to win major tournaments. Chapter 530. The Fiery Heart of Coach Hodgson. New water source stadium. The England and Netherlands teams arrived at the stadium 3 hours before the match. 2 hours before the match, both teams provided a new list with personnel adjustments. Van Gaal and Hodgson began their tactical duel at the pre-match press conference. Van Gaal clearly stated at the press conference that without Son Koo, England would not have made it this far. The Dutch coach spoke very harshly, believing that although English players are in the best league in the world, very few hold key positions in their clubs. He stated that compared to England, the overall strength of the Netherlands was superior, and they had also been tempered by the previous World Cup. Van Gaal said it could be expected that the match would be tough, but the Dutch team would definitely achieve victory in the end. Hodgson also spoke directly, stating that the average age of the Dutch team was older, and the key position players were all older. Interestingly, Hodgson made it clear that they would pay special attention to the two veterans, Robben and Sneijder. He even said with great seriousness, "We can defend against their core players, but they cannot defend against ours." Chapter 531. In front of Son Koo, he seemed as innocent as a boy. Commentary booth. Martin Tyler said seriously, before the match starts, "Let's take a look at the starting lineups of both teams. First, let's look at the Netherlands starting lineup. Van Gaal has set up a 4,312 formation. Goalkeeper, Cillessen. Defenders, Verhey, Vlaar, De Vrij, Blind. Defensive midfielders, Gout, De Jong, Wijnaldum. Attacking midfielder, Sneijder. Forwards, Van Persie, Robben." The England team's formation remains 4-2-3-1. But Hodgson has made adjustments to the lineup. Goalkeeper, Joe Hart. Defenders, Phil Jones, Terry Cahill-Walker. Defensive midfielders, Wilshere, Henderson. Attacking midfielder, Rooney. Left winger, Milner. Right winger, Walcott. Center forward, Son Koo. From the lineup, both teams are focusing on midfield battles. England's deployment of Milner on the left flank aims to double-team Robben. Milner is one of the few versatile players in this England team, capable of playing all positions except goalkeeper and center forward. Chapter 532. 7 goals, and 6 assists. This is the power of a unique player. After scoring his 3rd goal in the World Cup, Walcott was as happy as a fool, dancing and singing amidst the neutral fans' cheers. With the World Cup taking place in Brazil, neutral fans are mostly Brazilian. Although the England and Netherlands fans have been verbally sparring like 2 groups of rappers since the match began, it doesn't matter how much they insult each other. The Brazilian fans and others in between are singing and dancing. After Walcott's awkward dance full of hip movements, he is bound to face social media backlash. As the internet has a memory, the match resumed, and Van Persie, a bit impatient, took a shot from outside the box that sailed harmlessly into the stands. Seeing this, England fans erupted in laughter, singing lyrics like "If you can't score, you're soft." When it comes to mocking a man's performance, men worldwide can reach a consensus on their phrasing. The game continued, and the morale of the Dutch players dipped as England completed 2 consecutive shots. Rooney's long-range effort slid past the goal, and Walcott nearly scored again, but his stationary shot went straight into Celestin's arms. Chapter 533. The Netherlands team's old horses? You can't win. Back in the locker room, the teammates were not too excited. Conceding a goal just before halftime certainly dampened spirits. However, they couldn't be too down, as there were several experienced players in the England squad, and Hodgson brought these guys to Brazil for moments like this. Lampard, Gerrard, Ashley Cole, and Terry quickly energized the locker room in just 5 minutes. Then Rooney suddenly let out a curse, saying Van Persie's actions must be the result of growing up around girls. Since they were already insulting the Netherlands team, the other players got fired up, happily boasting. Having an elder in the house is like having a treasure is absolutely true. A successful team must have experienced veterans to anchor the squad. Although most of the older players have passed their peak and their form has declined, in a high-stakes event that can instantly raise heart rates to 140, veterans usually make an impact as soon as they step on the field. The more critical the situation, the more valuable the veterans become. Even if they can't last the whole game, they at least provide emotional support. If the older players in the team can't achieve these 2 points, that team will definitely not make it to the World Cup semifinals. Chapter 534. The weakest England team in history? The second best result ever. The moment the referee pointed to the penalty spot, all the England fans cheered, while the Dutch fans held their heads in despair. With just 4 minutes left, conceding a goal at this juncture was almost like being eliminated. Outside the stadium, Hodgson jumped up with both hands raised the moment he saw the referee's gesture. All the England team members behind him also jumped up from their seats, with Ashley Cole hugging Walcott and Gerrard shaking Henderson's body wildly. To them, Son taking the penalty was no different from scoring. Inside the stadium, the Dutch players surrounded the referee, passionately arguing their case, while Lampard and Rooney stood in the middle, loudly affirming the referee's decision. Terry ran over and physically separated the Dutch players from the referee, which angered several Dutch players, leading to a shoving match. In the penalty area, Son was moving his legs while observing the performances of a few seasoned players nearby. Other England players came over one by one, patting Son on the back, and seeing them try to suppress their emotions to avoid pressuring him. Son couldn't help but chuckle. Chapter 535. This is Son team. England defeated last year's runners-up, the Netherlands, to advance to the semi-finals, becoming a hot topic in the UK. Although England fans believe their team's destiny is only the championship, they gradually came to terms with reality as the World Cup progressed. In terms of lineup luxury, England can't compare to Germany, Argentina, Brazil, or the Netherlands, and even Spain is out of reach. Skill-wise, apart from Son, only Rooney, Hart, Walcott, and Wilshere can be considered top players. Sterling is too young, Sturridge is too soft, Lampard's mobility has significantly declined, and Gerrard has lost the physical prowess that made him famous. Terry and Ashley Cole have passed their peak, and Cahill's absolute strength doesn't qualify him as a top center-back. He excels only as a supporting player next to a strong center-back. Phil Jones and Milner can only be considered functional players. They would likely start in most teams. But no one expects these rough players to carry the team. After the World Cup started, England fans initially thought this lineup was sufficient and even believed the team played poorly after the first match. Chapter 536. Daring to start Demichelis. What a bold move. July 10th, 3 p.m. Arena Corinthians. A cool breeze blew as Son wiped the sweat off his forehead with his shirt. Today's temperature was only 28 degrees Celsius, which was quite good for a match. But this time, The sunlight shining on the grass and the evaporation of moisture raised the temperature on the field by at least 2 to 3 degrees. Additionally, with 450,000 fans in the stadium releasing carbon dioxide an hour before the match, the entire stadium felt quite stifling. In such weather, giving everything for a spot in the finals could lead to lactic acid buildup pain in an hour. If England were to play the full 120 minutes against Argentina in this weather, it would definitely worsen their situation, having already had one less day of rest. In yesterday's match, the game lost its suspense after just 30 minutes, and the German players played comfortably and cautiously for the following hour. Comfort comes from the fact that the match has long lost its suspense. Under such circumstances, it makes sense how they play. However, Skirl's appearance made all the Germans present tense up. This guy scored 2 more goals in front of tens of thousands of heartbroken Brazilian fans. Chapter 537, Steal for Messi. Dunk over the center back. Amidst the cheers of over 40,000 fans, the referee blew the whistle to start the match. Argentina kicked off first, with Messi passing the ball to Higuaín, who then sent the ball back to the defense before immediately charging forward. After Messi's kickoff, he stubbornly refused to run another step, walking slowly forward. Demichelis in the backline got the ball and wanted to wait for Messi to make a run, but their beloved half-human captain just wouldn't budge. Demichelis spread his arms towards Messi, who began to make a symbolic running motion, but his speed showed no improvement. Sanka couldn't help but chuckle. Despite this guy usually being quiet and modest, it was clear that was not the case at all. This play made it evident that he insisted on playing his way even when his teammates passed the ball, wanting them to accommodate him. It was obvious he was very pleased with himself, subconsciously wanting everyone to see how he was different from other players. He desperately needed the feeling of being the one who could resolve the game while his teammates struggled. As a captain, lacking communication skills is not something to brag about. It's not that he doesn't want to do it, but he simply can't and doesn't know how to do it, hence he doesn't. Chapter 538. This is the instinct of a top striker. After England scored, Lineker excitedly slapped the commentary desk and said, "So far, everything is going in England's favor. We have controlled the game, leading in possession, and limited our opponent's performance. If we can maintain this situation, our chances of advancing to the finals will reach 80. This is not just to scare people, it's the truth." Hearing Lineker's somewhat assertive commentary, Martin Tyler, with his experience, laid the groundwork from the data of the first half. After Messi returned to midfield, our possession advantage is decreasing. So far, we are only 4 percentage points ahead. In terms of shots, both teams have had 5 attempts. And Argentina has entered the 35-meter zone quite a few times. On the field, Argentina's midfield and defense players are in great form, with Mascherano disrupting our passes multiple times. "Gary, you need to further justify your point to the fans." Lineker chuckled. "That's right, the performance of the Argentine players is indeed impressive. Mascherano is like a precise interception machine." Chapter 539. Desperate substitutions? Advancing to the finals with a hat trick. In the commentary booth, Lineker was so excited he was almost incoherent. If this situation continues, victory will definitely not slip from our hands, because the story's ending is already determined. It's not the strongest team that wins the championship. Wrong. Totally wrong. Only the team that wins the championship is the strongest team. Before the World Cup started, everyone believed Brazil was the champion, saying our limit was the quarterfinals. Wake up, kids. Those predictions will only make you lose your pants. We defeated the Netherlands when no one believed in us, and now we lead Argentina by 2 goals in the semifinals, completely controlling the situation. Forget those damn statistics. Our players are fighting to the death on the field against their opponents. That's the most united team among the 32 teams. They have the best players on this planet. Under such circumstances, I will never believe we will lose the game. Just wait and see. After the match resumed, the majority of Argentine players fought with a desperate determination, battling England for every inch of the pitch. Chapter 540. Is the German team going to win the World Cup with offense? After the match ended, the England players stayed on the field for a while, simply shaking hands with the Argentine players. From the moment the referee's whistle blew, the England fans had been singing, and the song happened to be Dear Caroline. Dear Caroline, the beautiful times have never been so beautiful. I have fallen for you. They never believed in all of this. Oh, that phrase is quite fitting. The British are quite interesting. They like to give beautiful things a girl's name. Besides this song, there's also Hey Judy, all following this trend, and they're all works of rock bands. But in a country where individuals can change their gender every 3 months, perhaps there will no longer be such works. Otherwise, the lyrics should include, "Dear Caroline, you finally became the person you wanted to be. Though you have strong shoulders, you are still a good girl who needs care." The imagination of this phrase sends chills down one's spine, and you can't guarantee whether Caroline will turn back into Caroline T 3 months later. But the fighting nation probably doesn't have many such worries. They name their multiple rocket launchers Katyusha, submachine guns Paposha, and self-propelled rocket launchers Nona. Chapter 541. Successful opening steal. Sun Ku opens the scoring. July 14th. Decision day. From the moment I opened my eyes in the morning, a series of complex emotions like excitement, tension, and anxiety surrounded everyone's hearts. In the morning, warm-up, rest, lunch, pre-match meal, heading to the venue, warming up at the venue. Every step made everyone, including Sun Ku, feel the inner struggle. 3 hours before the match, the England and Germany teams got off the bus almost simultaneously. Today, police vehicles were spread out across all the streets the buses passed through in Rio. The number of security personnel today made it seem like this city was about to face a fierce urban battle. Today, the German players held their heads high. Today's fans seemed particularly excited. During warm-ups, Sun Ku and Reyes shared a hug. Reyes forced a smile and said, "Forgive me for not being able to wish you well." Sun Ku smiled lightly and patted his shoulder. "You can just wish yourself well." After greeting Reyes, Sun Ku patted Gundogan on the neck. "Did you suddenly go on a fast, which is why you didn't make the starting lineup?" Gundogan chuckled and shook his head. "I just found out yesterday that I can't start without shaving." Chapter 542. Be a little bolder. I will shoot again. Amidst the huge cheers of the England fans and the noisy voices of the German fans, the England players excitedly surrounded Sun Ku. Sun Ku hugged his teammates, continuously encouraging everyone. This is their weakest moment. After the match starts, keep applying pressure on them and strive to score again. After the match began, the 4 defenders of the German team made varying degrees of mistakes, and Kroos particularly showcased a performance worthy of a scapegoat, conceding a goal with a header. Kroos's header reminded Sun Ku of the 2014 World Cup final in his previous life, where Kroos also headed the ball into his own penalty area, gifting Higuain a clear chance. Higuain, however, squandered the opportunity, kicking himself out of the ranks of top forwards and missing the chance to have a statue erected in his honor, leaving only a photo on the wall while still alive. You were given the chance, yet you failed. After comparing the two eras, Sun Ku was certain that the German players were extremely nervous, and this colossal mistake would only intensify their internal tension. In contrast, his teammates displayed a dramatically different attitude, showing relentless enthusiasm from the very first second of the match, fiercely battling their opponents. Chapter 543. Goal 14. The second World Cup is within reach. After a fierce 45-minute battle, when the referee blew the whistle for halftime, many players from both teams appeared momentarily dazed. Regardless of what one does, once they enter a state of forgetting themselves, they instinctively ignore the passage of time. After the whistle, the expressions of the England players showed fatigue, yet satisfaction, as if they had been charmed by a witch 3 times but still felt content. Meanwhile, the German players appeared disheveled, like a boxer who had been knocked down twice in 6 rounds. Their faces were swollen, their brows cut, yet they remained steadfast, with their mental state still intact. Simply put, they were battered, but not mortally wounded. This was a thought that suddenly emerged in Sun Ku's mind. In the first half, the overall running ability of the England team was noticeably superior to that of Germany. In other matches, such running might not be a problem. But this was the World Cup final, on a stage where one might only get a chance once in a lifetime. 1/3 of their physical stamina was spent fighting against spatial tension and pressure. The more important the match, the higher the comprehensive requirements for a professional player. In reality, the skill gap between top players and near-top players is often quite blurred. Chapter 544. Is it rising? Or just a brief flash? On the sidelines, Lowe crossed his arms with a serious expression, watching the England players celebrate on the field. Gundogan only substituted for Kramer at this point, and the German team resembled a person losing too much blood, visibly losing vital signs, yet unable to do much about it. All the German team could do was make positional substitutions, replacing underperforming players with those in better physical shape to push forward. However, the poor performance of the German team was systemic, not just the fault of 1 or 2 players. And this situation could not be resolved simply by substituting a defender for a forward. given the morale of the England team and Son Co's ability to seize opportunities. Could they avoid being beaten like Brazil? Football matches are not like street fights, where it's about bullying the weak. The camera shifted to the stands, where a group of England fans was angrily berating German fans who had mixed in after buying scalp tickets. One German fan, a hefty man, was called fatty and fat pig by the England fans, and soon 300 to 400 fans joined in the chant against him. In the commentary booth, Lineker smugly remarked, due to the vast difference between the two teams, the broadcasters had shifted their focus to the stands. Chapter 545, Goal 15. Finally achieving dominance. After England conceded a goal, Terry repeatedly patted his chest and loudly declared, my fault, as the anchor of the defense. Veteran Terry immediately took the blame after the goal was conceded. From this perspective, having experienced players in the lineup is incredibly important. If we analyze carefully, the goal conceded was a result of a chain reaction. Phil Jones turned to chase Muller, leaving a gap in the wall, which Kroos exploited to take the free kick. As a top center back, Terry instinctively sensed that the free kick could be dangerous, which is why he tried to block it. In fact, even if Muller received the ball, Ashley Cole, as a mobile player behind the wall, would likely have been able to defend against Muller. But this was not the time to discuss such matters. The team still had a 2-goal advantage, which was ample. If a 2-goal lead is the biggest trap in the football world, then a 3-goal lead is the tightest shackles. The German team fought desperately to pull one back, but there were still 2 goals to make up, and this goal only provided them with a glimmer of hope. After the match resumed, the German players began to fight with all their might. Chapter 546. Epilogue, August 16, 2014. London Olympic Stadium. The first round of the 2014 to 2015 Premier League season. L'Étoile Orient au Stade Chelsea. After a summer of renovations, the Olympic Stadium, which could accommodate 80,000 people, had its temporary stands for 25,000 spectators transformed to include facilities such as player dressing rooms and medical support. The stadium, which could hold 60,000, was packed to capacity. At the moment the match began, tens of thousands of fans raised black and white photos that had been uniformly customized and paid for by the club. Founded in 1881, Leyton Orient had, in its 133rd year, finally been promoted to the top tier of English football. Fans in the stands held up photos of friends and relatives, witnessing a historic moment for the team they loved. Judging by their attire, the people in the photos spanned over a century of history. There were metallurgical workers from the First Industrial Revolution. There were players who sacrificed their lives for their country during the First World War. There were middle-aged gentlemen who longed for the club to reach the top tier but could not fight against time. At the instant the match began, the announcer boomed. Today's attendance is 86,743. May they be with us.